There are wounds that don't bleed, yet they leave people exhausted for years. You still wake up every morning, still go to work, still laugh and talk with everyone. But deep inside, there is a pain that never truly disappeared. Sometimes it returns at night, when everything becomes quiet, when there is nothing left to distract you, when you are alone with your own mind, and suddenly, all the old emotions begin to come back. The words that once hurt you, the people who walked away, the feeling of not being loved enough, the times you tried so hard and still failed. And the scariest part is, many people have lived with suffering for so long that they begin to believe, maybe this is just who I am. But in Buddhism, the Buddha saw pain in a very different way. He never said, don't feel pain anymore. He said, understand why you are in pain. Because most people don't truly understand their own emotions. We only try to run away from them, hide them, or do everything we can to make them disappear as quickly as possible. But the more we avoid pain, the stronger it becomes. There was once a woman who came to a monk and said, I don't understand why I'm always sad. I have a job. I have a family. From the outside, everything seems fine. But inside, I always feel empty. The monk asked her, what do you usually do when your heart is hurting? The woman replied, I keep myself busy so I can forget about it. The monk gave a sorrowful smile. So for all these years, you have never truly sat down and listened to your own pain. The woman fell silent, because that is what most people do. We are afraid of facing our real emotions. So, we scroll endlessly on our phones, throw ourselves into work, seek attention, or keep ourselves so busy that we no longer have time to feel. But pain does not disappear just because you ignore it. It simply sinks deeper into the mind, and one day, it returns in the form of anxiety, overthinking, anger, loneliness, or an exhaustion you cannot even explain. In Buddhism, there is a profound truth. Emotional pain does not come only from what happens to us. It comes from the mind, constantly resisting what has already happened. We suffer because we cannot accept rejection. We cannot accept loss. We cannot accept that someone has changed. We cannot accept that life will not always go our way. That's why two people can go through the same heartbreak, yet suffer in completely different ways. One learns to accept it and move forward. The other remains trapped in the memory for years. The difference is not in the event itself. It is in how the mind responds to it. The Buddha once taught, the first arrow is the unavoidable pain. The second arrow is the suffering created by the mind itself. For example, being hurt by someone is the first arrow, but replaying it in your mind for years afterward, that is the second arrow. And sadly, most people keep shooting themselves with that second arrow every single day without even realizing it. We do not suffer only because of what happened. We suffer because the mind refuses to let the story go. There is something very strange about human beings. Sometimes we do not suffer only because of pain. We unconsciously become addicted to it. It sounds hard to believe, but think about it. Why do some people clearly know a relationship is hurting them, yet still cannot walk away? Why do some people keep returning to the memories that hurt them the most? And why does the mind always replay negative moments more than peaceful ones? In Buddhism, this comes from what is called identification with suffering. People suffer for so long that they begin to see pain as part of who they are. They no longer say, I'm feeling sad, but deep inside, they begin to believe, I am an unhappy person. That is the moment suffering is no longer just a temporary emotion. It becomes an identity. Some people spend every day replaying who hurt them, who betrayed them, how unfair life has been to them. At first, they are only trying to understand what happened. But little by little, the mind becomes trapped inside the story itself. It's like someone constantly touching a wound just to check if it still hurts. And the more they touch it, the longer it takes to heal. The Buddha once taught, what the mind clings to, it eventually becomes. If the mind is filled every day with resentment, regret, anger, self-pity, then little by little, the entire inner world also becomes heavy and dark. That's why some people, even though their lives have become much better, still cannot feel happy because their minds are still living in the past. A monk once told a story. A man came to him and asked, "Why can't I forget what other people have done to me?" The monk did not answer right away. Instead, he lit a small pile of charcoal and asked, "If you want to throw burning charcoal at someone, you have to hold it first, don't you?" The man nodded. The monk looked at him and said, "Then who gets burned first?" The man stayed silent for a very long time, because many people never realize this. Every time we hold on to hatred, regret, or suffering, the first person being burned is ourselves. In Buddhism, letting go is not about forgiving because someone else deserves it. It is because your mind deserves peace. The Buddha never taught people to become emotionless. He simply taught, do not let negative emotions become the place where you live forever, because every emotion is impermanent. The pain you feel today will also change one day, but if the mind keeps clinging to it, we turn a temporary rainstorm into a winter that lasts for years. There is one mistake that people who overthink often make. They believe that if they keep analyzing their pain long enough, one day they will finally be free from it. But not every wound is healed by thinking more. Sometimes healing begins with stopping the digging, stopping the replaying, stopping the self-torture through questions that have no answers. In Buddhism, there is a beautiful saying, you cannot stop birds from flying over your head, but you can stop them from building a nest in your mind. Negative thoughts are the same. You cannot force your mind to never feel sad, never remember, never hurt. But you can learn how to watch emotions come and go without being carried away by every single one of them. That is true freedom, not a life without suffering, but a mind that no longer drowns every time suffering appears. And if you've ever felt like you overthink too much, you can't escape old memories, or you've carried a sadness for so long without even understanding why, comment 1 below as a reminder to yourself that some of the strongest chains in life are not out in the world. They exist within our own minds, unable to let go. Perhaps one of the most painful things about being human is carrying so many unhealed emotions inside while still pretending to be okay. We smile in front of others, but at night we become exhausted by our own minds. We try to stay strong, try to be mature, try to keep moving forward, but deep inside, there are still wounds that have never truly been laid to rest. And over time, many people begin living like shadows of themselves. They no longer feel life fully anymore. Everything slowly starts to feel meaningless, exhausting, empty, not because they are weak, but because they have been fighting too much noise inside themselves for far too long. In Buddhism, the Buddha never promised that life would be free from suffering. He only taught this when we truly understand the nature of the mind. Suffering no longer has the power to drown us the way it once did. That is the great difference. An awakened person can still feel pain, still experience loss, still shed tears, but they do not allow pain to pull them under forever because they understand emotions are like clouds. No matter how dark they are, they will eventually pass. It is people who keep holding on to them for far too long. We hold on to old memories, old words, the times we were hurt, the regrets that can never be changed. And then we turn our hearts into a place crowded with things that have already passed. But life has never asked us to carry everything forever. Sometimes maturity is not about learning something new. It is about learning how to put things down, to let go of the need to be understood by everyone, the fear of being abandoned, old stories, and even the suffering version of ourselves. That is when the mind slowly begins to feel lighter, not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because, inside, we are no longer resisting everything. Maybe today, you still haven't fully healed, and that's okay. Healing does not happen in a single day, and letting go is not something you can do just by trying harder. The Buddha never asked people to become perfect. He simply reminded us, waking up a little more each day is already a very meaningful step. And if this video touched some part of your heart today, remember this: you are not alone. In the battle with your own mind, there are so many people out there who are also overthinking every night, trying to heal old wounds and learning how to find peace in a world filled with pressure. And there's a truth that very few people are willing to admit. Sometimes the most dangerous thing is not the person who once hurt you, it's the memory of them still living inside your mind every single day. Some people have been gone from our lives for a very long time, yet in our minds, they still appear every night. We think we are missing a person, but in reality, we are addicted to returning to the past. And that is exactly why so many people never truly heal, because the body has moved on, but the mind is still living inside an old story that refuses to end. In the next episode, Why Your Mind Keeps Replaying the Past, Buddhist Wisdom, we'll explore why the brain keeps replaying the most painful memories, why people become trapped in regret, and the Buddha's profound teachings on escaping the prison called the past. Believe me, after that episode, you'll begin to understand this. Some memories do not hold you back because they were too beautiful, but because your mind has not yet learned how to truly let go.